But let's jump into our very special Star Wars news show where we talk about Star Wars Celebration, because there's a lot of news. We're separating this out into a separate episode because there was just a lot that happened, and we could talk about it for probably an hour, but we're going to try to keep it compact and cohesive and succinct, I suppose. For it.
Yeah, it was I was joking about this in my last reaction video, but like when I'm on vacation, I don't look at my phone or the internet half as much, because like the intention there is to relax. But when I do pick up my phone, it's like I have a lot of Star Wars nerd friends who text me, and then like my Twitter is blowing up, and so I'm seeing all this news dropping, but I'm not in like a position to talk about it. And it always falls like on the same part of the year. So every time like I'm down in Florida, like this Star Wars Celebration is always going on. And so I just like mentally have to prepare myself for when I get back, because then I'm like, okay, what was the content that released? What am I most looking forward to? Were there any new trailers? And I guess this can be our segue into the first bit of news, which is the Ahsoka trailer dropped. And that was probably the biggest thing to come out of Star Wars Celebration, at least I think.
Yeah, for sure. So before we get into that, I think we're missing a key component of the show. Okay, not super breaking news, but it's news nonetheless, and we can jump right in to Ahsoka show, which I think was probably the highlight of Star Wars Celebration this year. It seemed pretty packed, chock full of great Star Wars news. But yeah, what were your thoughts? Let's dive on in.
Well, first of all, that trailer has over 10 million views on YouTube. I don't know if you looked at that, but like it's craziness. Should we watch the trailer?
Let's put it on real quick.
Yeah, I can share,
because I'd like a nice refresher. But it's an awesome trailer. So to start, it is very good. There's a good reason why it has this many views. So let's jump in and watch it real quick.
Sweet. Here we go.
Something's coming. Something dark. I sense it.
Red
Love
logo.
that, dude.
This is
I get the chills every time I see that.
For some, war. For others,
This is so weird for me, dude. I can't even tell you.
I know.
power.
It's been a while. Things have changed. I started hearing whispers about Thrawn's return as heir to the Empire.
She said the thing.
She did.
We have to prepare for the worst. The Jedi fell a long time ago. There aren't many left.
Craziness.
Perhaps it is time to begin again.
God. Oh, this is the David Tennant droid. Oh my gosh. Here's my thing on this trailer is, and I guess this is a good place to start, but I am really trying to keep my distance from this show when it comes to expectations and hype, particularly because of the way that the last few shows have turned out. Like, I'm really trying to temper my expectations. That being said, this looks really good. And
It looks awesome.
I'm cautiously very optimistic about it. But there is like that element of, oh, please be good. I want you to be good so bad.
I am feeling the same way. I think this will be probably just off of this trailer. It's a very good trailer, and based off of that, like the first thing I thought was like, this is going to be the Star Wars highlight of 2023. In my opinion, that's what it looks like it's going to be. It's a very well put together trailer. It's very hype, and it's exciting. It's like it looks a little dark. Obviously, now for me, it's going to be like, all right, Matt, time to watch Rebels. You have to watch Rebels now. So it's going to force me to do that before the show comes out. But overall, like, it just looks. I had so many people texting me too who are like, "Dude, did you see that trailer? It looks awesome."
Did your friend Adam text you? Did Adam text you?
Adam texted me. My friend Rob texted me. A couple people messaged me on Instagram. It looks good.
What the thing that gets me about this is, this is a conversation that, you know, you and I can have when we do our Mando breakdown, but like a lot of people have been like, how involved has Dave Filoni actually been with The Mandalorian season 3? Because upon first glance, it doesn't really look like he's had a lot of input, especially when it comes to the way that season 3 has been presented to us, especially with the lack of focus. And a big part of that could be that like all of his time has just been invested into this Ahsoka series and trying to get that right, which would explain why Mandalorian season 3 has dropped off in quality quite a bit.
Yeah.
And honestly, like I'm fine with that, because the Ahsoka series, like, I really do have expectations for, and especially like with the story, I do expect that to be higher quality. And so with that in mind, things are starting to make sense with me in regard to how The Mandalorian season 3 has fallen off.
Yeah.
So
yeah, if
that's
he's
just
writing
something
the
that I've
whole
noticed.
thing, I think that's good. I think it's good to have one writer do the whole thing, especially someone like Filoni, who's like George Lucas's little protege. The one thing that worries me, and we've kind of seen this in Mandalorian, is just the Clone Wars-y storytelling side of it. Doesn't really translate to live action as much. I don't know exactly why that is, but that's Filoni's bread and butter, obviously, is the animation style. So I'm cautiously optimistic like you are, but I'm all, the thing that makes me a little nervous is I hope it's not too much of that storytelling, where it was very similar to this the Mandalorian episode with Jack Black and Lizzo, where that felt very Clone Wars-y, and like I don't want every single episode of Ahsoka to be like that. Now, with that being said, this is Dave Filoni's baby. Ahsoka's his character, so I would imagine he put his heart and soul into this, and so I can only hope and expect that it's going to be amazing.
Yeah, and the problem is they're taking, a lot of these shows are taking the Clone Wars format and trying to paste it onto live action, like, and I've had this conversation with a few people, but that format of storytelling worked for Clone Wars because Clone Wars is an anthology series. It's called The Clone Wars. It's not called the Ahsoka show. It's not called the Padme show or the Jar Jar or Saj Ventress or Dooku. Like, it hops around and it tells the stories of all these characters, and in telling all of their stories, you build up to what the Clone Wars was. And they have the space to do that. But like in shows like The Mandalorian, you're a little bit more limited because you are honing in on a specific character. I think if you watch Rebels has much more linear storytelling. Like, it sticks very strictly to the crew, to the Ghost crew. And yeah, there were random episodes here and there, but the random episodes still focused on a specific member of the Ghost crew. So you would get episodes that were specific to Zeb, or episodes that were specific to Kanan and Ezra, or Sabine, or Ahsoka, or Captain Rex. But they were still focused in on the main group of characters. Like, they weren't hopping around the galaxy. And so I have to anticipate that the Ahsoka show's structure would be a lot like Rebels in that way. But I do share that same concern, which is just like, with the track record that we've had right now, there is cause to be nervous. But at the same time, if this is really a Filoni-controlled project and he's seeing it through from start to finish, then that does put me a little bit more at ease. Because I'm like, okay, then this is his story, and he's going to have full control, and we're not going to be hopping around from planet X to planet Y to planet Z.
Yeah,
so,
and if they do it like they did Mando season 2, which is what I'm expecting they will make this then I think it's going to be incredible. The one thing that I keep coming back to is I can't help but think something happened with Mando season 3 with Kathleen Kennedy and Jon Favreau, and there's been rumors of this where too many people suck their fingers in the pie. And my whole thing now with Mandalorian season 3, the weakness is that the Grogu reuniting with Din in the second or in Book of Boba Fett crippled the season way more than I thought it was going to. And I think it really hurt the overall story for this new season. With the Ahsoka show, we don't have anything like that. It's brand new, right? And even the first season of Mandalorian was really good, right? I mean, it was still getting its sea legs a little bit. but it was still really good, you know? And so I'm going into this thinking, okay, I am hopeful that it will be very well put together. And now that Dave Filoni's had some experience with Mandalorian, and now there's going to be an intersecting story between this and the Skeleton Crew and Mandalorian. That's all but confirmed into some movie, you know, with the Mandoverse. So I feel like that it's already been written out, as opposed to a lot of Star Wars things where they kind of just write it as they go. Like, obviously, famously, with the first Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, the whole Luke, I am your father thing, George Lucas didn't even know, and people
The
are
whole
like,
Luke and Leia being related.
Yeah, and everyone's like, what about these plot holes? Exactly, Luke and Leia being related, and people are like, well, he hadn't written it yet, okay? So we're trying to fix it. We're constantly trying to fix it and make it more cohesive, and it gets better and better. But this one's already been, like, kind of fleshed out, you know? Rebels already kind of laid the groundwork for it, and Mandalorian is tying into it now, too, and Dave Filoni has a very complete understanding of Star Wars lore and storytelling, so it has the potential to be really, really solid.
Yeah, and I do have to. I think that's a really good point to bring up, is the fact that these characters are already established. Like, we're not doing any guesswork here. We know who Ahsoka is. We know who Sabine is. We know who Ezra is. We know what the general premise of this show is expected to be, which is finding out where Ezra and Thrawn went, and kind of bringing Thrawn back into the game as the big baddie, which, speaking of, that is our boy Lars Mikkelsen. Confirmed. I mean, that's not really a shock. I mean, they lie left and right, but I'm glad we get clarity on that finally.
Yeah, you heard it here first, guys. We were the first to report on this. No one else had reported on it.
I wish. No, but I think that's great. I think Dude gave some awesome voice acting in Star Wars Rebels for the character, and so to see that come to fruition with live action, I feel like is going to be very exciting, because the guy's
he already knows the
actor.
character too. He's already done the character. He knows, so he has that background of it. He's not coming in completely oblivious to who this character is, why it's important to Star Wars. Like, he's getting a running start on it, and he will be great. He's an awesome actor. And he's going to fit in really well with the Star Wars universe. He already has, but I mean, having him translate to live action, he looks like a Star Wars character. There's just a certain thing, you know, and we can talk about this on our episode where we break down the Mandalorian Jack Black episode. There's some characters who just don't look like they really like fit into the Star Wars universe. And he does. He definitely is going to, I think, do a good job.
He's definitely got the look for it, like the defined cheekbones, the way his face is structured. Like, I feel like it'll translate really well, so I'm excited to see him. The last bit of thing on the Ahsoka trailer is, I think for me, as somebody who kind of, I don't want to say grew up. I mean, I was like 17 or 18 when Rebels first came out. Maybe 18 or 19. I can't remember, because it came out in 2014, and I graduated from high school in 2013. Yeah, so I probably would have been around 18 years old, because it came out that fall. But it's just strange for me when I was watching this trailer, because I am so used to these characters in animation where I'm now seeing them in live action, that it's a bit of a jolt for me as somebody who's kind of been there from the beginning. And I think like another point of reference that, you know, makes me a little bit nervous is like Rosario Dawson's like acting range when it comes to Ahsoka. Not that I think that she's going to do a bad job, but we've seen such a limited acting range with her, with that particular character, that like I'm a little nervous how that's going to translate for me, especially because like Ashley Eckstein is like the character. Like, she embodies that character so well. So I think that there's going to be a bit of like this is weird and it's different, but I'm going to adjust to it. Also, the flip side of that is I'm just sitting here, I'm like, okay, are we going to bring Captain Rex in this show? Because this is kind of a pivotal thing for me. I need the character in this show. And one of my friends was texting me, and she was like, they could be saving that as a surprise, because there's so much in the trailer that's vague. Like, the trailer for everything that it reveals, and it reveals a lot, it's also still very vague and protective of what they want their audience to see. So I'm also sitting here and I'm like, please bring Tamora Morrison in as Rex. Just please. I need this. Because there were rumors going around that he did like screen tests as Captain Rex. And I'm like, just give it to me. I want this so bad.
Dude, Tamora Morrison is just, he is the gift that keeps on giving to Star Wars. He starts.
I love that, man.
They redub him into the original trilogy. Then he becomes Boba Fett. He's obviously the clones, and like, yeah, having him as Rex would be awesome. I think they'll do that. They're definitely saving that. They gave away a lot. They don't want to give away too much. You got to save some surprises. This wasn't a trailer though, where you have any idea of really what the plot's going to be. They told you enough without telling you too much. Obviously, it's going to be very Rebels centric, very Rebels focused with all those characters. Sabine, and you have Chopper in there too, and
the murderous droid, I love him.
Glup Shido is in there as well.
Glup Shido.
But like, I think they gave away a good amount without giving away too much, and I think Captain Rex is going to be one of those reveals that they have in there, and I think that's a smart move. They shouldn't put him in. If they did put him in the trailer, I'd be like, all right, wait, come on, we knew this was going to come, and like Filoni. There's no way he wouldn't put him in the show. There's no way.
I know. I'm like nervous. I'm like, just please, I need this, especially because they opened up so much. Like, the relationship between Captain Rex and Ahsoka Tano is my favorite relationship in all of Star Wars because there's so much depth there and complexity, especially in the last 4 episodes of the Clone Wars. Like, I love that relationship. And the last time that Ahsoka and Rex talked to each other, most recently in the timeline, is right before she went on Malachor. And then when the Ghost Crew comes back, Rex thinks Ahsoka is dead. And so I'm just waiting for that reunion. I'm like, you just let him know that she's fine? Like, I just need that reunion so bad. And I need to see it in the show. Otherwise, it's just going to kill me.
You will. You'll see it. I think you will be very happy. Now, one thing I hope they don't do is I hope they don't Qui-Gon him, where they just put him in the last 3 seconds of the show. That would be very annoying.
That would really piss me off.
But actually, on that point you had with Ahsoka fighting Maul, I just watched that scene again the other day, where Maul's telling her essentially everything that happened, kind of like Dooku told Obi-Wan everything that happened, except for it's happening now, where he's like, the Republic's already fallen, like, he's getting Anakin, and that's when Ahsoka stops believing him, she's like, he would never turn, you idiot, and then she gets all defensive and starts fighting him. Mm-hmm. What a good scene that was. I just sidebar real quick.
Yeah, so good.
It's so good, like, for an animated show especially, and like the lightsaber movements they have in that fight, like, it's really cool. So just a little side tangent there. I forgot how good that last season of Clone Wars actually was. I'm going to have to rewatch the whole thing.
You know, we should do that together because I've actually intended to go back and rewatch it. I recently watched Shattered like 2 months ago, and it just hits so well. It just hits as good as the day I first saw it.
Yeah.
It's just those last
scene,
4 episodes. Oh my God, it's phenomenal.
It's so good. The music is so good. The storytelling, it feels very cinematic. And that's what I hope they bring to Ahsoka. Ahsoka she deserves a movie, honestly. Like, there's a lot to tell there. And I think they're going to cover a lot of that with this show. I think it'll be really good. My question for you, though, is, because, I mean, we're finishing up Mandalorian next week, obviously. I want to do some reactions to Rebels. I know our fans, or I don't want to call them fans, our viewers hate me because I didn't know who Glup Shido was. So I want to do some reaction videos. Do I need to watch every episode of Rebels? Because I don't know if I'll have time to do that before Ahsoka comes out.
No, I don't think you need to watch every episode of Rebels.
Okay.
I think there are definitely, I feel like if you're watching them to get caught up on Ahsoka, I don't think every single episode is necessary, especially because you do get those side quest missions where it's like Zeb is alone on a planet for an entire episode and he has to work with like the droids. Like, that was like the one episode of Rebels I think I skipped. So there are arcs. Yeah. So there are arcs that are not going to correlate directly to the overarching story. And there are definitely episodes that are more prominent than others, but I could just go back through and be like, watch that one, don't watch that one, watch that one, don't watch that one.
Yeah. So also, viewers watching now, if you want to type up which episodes are must watch for Rebels, write them in the comments or write us at anotherStarWarsPod@gmail.com, which you'd like to see me react to. I'll go through and do as many as I can once Mandalorian is done with, and we can do them together, and that'll be a fun thing.
Yeah, I would actually love to go through Rebels and do some reactions, like whether we do them together or separately. I think that would be like the road to Ahsoka, watching Rebels. And then maybe like if some of our listeners haven't seen Rebels, like you guys could watch along with us and provide your commentary. Like, I think that could be a lot of fun.
Yeah. I also wanted to do some live streaming for Jedi Fallen Order before that comes out, before Survivor comes out. I don't know if I'll have time to do that now because I'm just like stoked on Ahsoka and I want to catch up on that stuff because there's a lot of context there. That's the other thing I'm nervous about. Will this show be able to hold up with non-Star Wars fans?
I watched this interview with Dave Filoni. I think it was on Screen Rant or Entertainment Tonight. And he said that the goal with writing Ahsoka is to make sure that, like, you can go into it at not having watched Rebels or Clone Wars. He's like, if you do watch Rebels or Clone Wars, it's going to have a deeper meaning to you, but it won't ruin your experience if you haven't seen them. He said something along those lines.
Well, I hope so, because I think with any TV show, especially like a sci-fi or a fantasy TV show, you got to appeal. And for it to be a critically acclaimed, wildly successful TV show, you got to have appeal to your average person who doesn't necessarily know all the Star Wars lore.
That's true.
And it doesn't need to be the greatest TV show ever made. I'm just saying, like, if you want it to be excellent, it's got to be able to stand on its own. You don't have to have seen Clone Wars or Rebels. You can just look at this character and be like, wow, this is a really cool female lead character who fights with lightsabers and is badass and has a cool story arc, you know? Mm-hmm. So, well, I guess we'll see. We'll find out soon enough. It comes out this year. We got like
approaching. It's really quickly approaching. The last thing on the Ahsoka show, because I have to bring this up because I'm a Doctor Who nerd, but David Tennant is back as Huang. that you get to the end, and I if you guys have like seen my trailer reaction, I just get to the point I'm like, oh, David Tennant. So I'm super excited. I don't know why or how that character is back, but I don't care. Bring me more David Tennant content. This is his year. He is coming back as the Doctor in the fall. I'm like, yes, bring him back into Star Wars. Totally here for it.
Yeah,
so I'm pumped about that.
Good addition. Good addition. Also, Chopper. Dude, there's a lot of good stuff. The bad guys. Balin, is that the guy's name with the orange lightsaber? And his apprentice. They seem like they're going to be dark badass. Also, there's that scene of him in the hallway, very similar to Darth Vader in Rogue One. I wonder if there's some kind of connection there. That was one thing that I noticed. It's very, very similar, familiar. Maybe that's a world between worlds thing.
Ooh.
Like an alternate timeline or something. I don't know. Initially, I was like, what if that's an older Anakin who didn't get burned at Mustafar? But then it turns out it's some other guy, Glupshido.
Isn't that guy the same guy who plays Fen Rao in Rebels? Or am I mistaken?
Fen Rao is that's the
Mandalorian guy.
Oh, right.
Isn't that him?
Oh, maybe
is
it
that
is. Let me look
What's
it
that
up.
actor's
Hold on.
name? Is it Ray Stevenson?
Let me look up Fen Rao. Actor. No, Kevin McKidd. That's not him, no.
Kevin McKidd. Okay. I wasn't sure.
We talked about him in
Cool.
a previous episode, I think. Yeah,
we did. But you want to hear a fun fact? So that character, it's Ray Stevenson, right? Who's playing whatever his name is, Glupshido.
Yeah, but
right. So that guy and his apprentice, what is her name?
So hot. He is like such a breathtaking hunk. His name is Balin or something.
Balin, and then what is his apprentice's name? The young girl. It's Balin Scroll and
Shin something. Shin Hadi.
Okay, so here is the thing. So I looked this up, and Scroll and Hadi are like in Norse mythology, they are two wolves who represent like the sun and the moon.
Mm-hmm. Very Dave Filoni thing to do.
And I was like, this is peak Dave Filoni. He has to bring in the wolves. He has to bring in the parallels. I mean, there is a track. There is a track in the Ahsoka, or not, excuse me, I start again. There is a soundtrack in Star Wars Rebels that is called Where the Sun Sails and the Moon Walks, which is a direct quote from Lord of the Rings.
Hell yeah.
That's the name of the soundtrack in Star Wars Rebels. And I think that track is the one that plays where it's the end of the Malachor arc after everybody thinks Ahsoka has died. And that's the soundtrack that plays as Vader and Ahsoka go their separate ways. It's called Where the Sun Sails and the Moon Walks, which ties back into Lord of the Rings. So
I love that stuff. That's awesome. That's a great tidbit right there.
So I just love that it's like Scroll in Hades. It's like, it's a wolf thing. But I love it. It's just so in character for him. Keep doing that, Dave Filoni.
That's
I love
that's
it.
Really funny. Also,
I love it.
I'm looking up Ray Stevenson's IMDb right now. He was in the Clone Wars. He played Gar Saxon. I don't know who that
Gar
is.
Saxon, that was it. I knew he played a Mandalorian.
Yeah.
That was it.
So, and then he's also a good actor, dude. He's also in Rebels as Gar Saxon.
Yeah.
He is also in The Other Guys. That's where I recognize his face from. He's like the bad Australian guy in The Other Guys, which is one of my favorite comedies of the 2010s. He's also in The Book of Eli. He's one of the bad guys in Book of Eli. Like a brief.
Oh, is he really?
And Kill the Irishman. Yeah, he's been in a lot of really good movies. He's in Divergent, Thor, The Dark World. Like, he's a great actor. So I think that's he also looks very Star Wars. Like, seeing him with that orange lightsaber is badass. So I'm excited to see his role. We can wrap this up now and move on to more Star Wars news, but just overall, this trailer, like, so well put together, massive hype. It looks like there's going to be a lot of lightsaber dueling. We see the double lightsaber stuff, the World Between Worlds stuff with Ahsoka.
Orange lightsabers,
which a lot of people thought they screwed up the red lightsabers, but I thought it was pretty obvious they were like orange. But
Yeah, I did too.
Looks like there's going to be a lot of action. You get to see Hera and all them too. So, like, there's a lot to look forward to here, and I think this might be one of the better Star Wars trailers we've gotten in a while. Might be better than I don't know if it's better than the Obi-Wan one, but it's as good.
It's as good. They build the hype a lot here, but I'm really trying to be cautious with my expectations here because, like, I'm a very big Dave Filoni fan. I love his work. I love what he's done in the past. I think he has written some of the best Star Wars stories. Like the Clone Wars finale to me is utter perfection and it's peak Star Wars. And I hope he can maintain that kind of quality in the Ahsoka series. Like, I have faith, but I'm also like, keep your distance, Melissa. Just temper your expectations. And if it surprises you and makes it really happy, then great. But just keep them centered.
I think the thing this has going for it is you're not playing with any, like, world-renowned, iconic Star Wars characters. If you're a fan like us,
except maybe Anakin.
Ahsoka's a pretty, pivotal character, right? She's really, really cool and had a lot of good development over the last couple of years. But the reason I say that is, like, then that gives Dave Filoni and the writers more freedom to do what they want, and people aren't going to be as protective over what the story is or what it's going to look like or who you need to appeal to. It's like Dave Filoni can do what he wants to do with it. Similar to, like, The Mandalorian first season. There was nothing I needed to expect with that. I'm like, good, more Star Wars content, a new character. You're exploring a different world where it's not necessarily lightsabers, it's blasters, it's a Western. It's like a true Western in space. Mm-hmm. So I hope they can go the same direction with this. So we will await the show with great interest, as we like to say on the show.
That's true. I guess the next bit of news that we can jump straight into is we have 3 Star Wars movies announced that are coming probably within the next 10 years, one can assume. We have a Dave Filoni Mandoverse movie, which was expected. I mean, there were a lot of rumors going around recently about the culmination of all these series coming together. So Dave Filoni's officially getting his own movie. Yay, Mandoverse. We have a Rey Palpatine movie that's set 15 years after the rise of Skywalker. And as far as we know, Daisy Ridley is the only person coming back for it, which I thought was interesting that they only announced her and no other cast, which is telling me that they are probably still in negotiations with other actors.
And then with Star Wars, it's like, who knows? We're going to announce it, but who knows if it's actually going to happen? We're just going to announce it.
Yeah, we need to get into that because I don't know how much of this I actually trust. And then what was the third movie? Oh, the third movie is... Shoot, what was the third one?
Star Wars Episode -1, a prequel to the prequels.
Wait. Star Wars movies announced. What was the third one? How am I...
The Dawn of the Jedi
it's the Dawn of the Jedi.
Yeah.
It's the one taking 25,000 years earlier than any installment of the saga told on screen.
That one I'm stoked for. That one will be cool. That one's going to be, again, no preconceived notions of what the show's supposed to be. It's just going to be Jedi stories from a long time ago, and you can have totally new characters with lightsabers fighting each other. I think that's going to be really, really cool. I'm excited for that. I think that's a really good opportunity to expand the Star Wars universe without needing to rely on past characters or recurring characters.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's going to be directed by James Mangold. And he said something really interesting. He said he wanted it to be like a biblical story in the sense of like the Ten Commandments movie. Like he actually compared it to the Ten Commandments movie, which is hilarious because that's like
Charlton
such
Heston,
a pro.
free my people from bondage.
That movie is flawless. I love that
I think
film.
Charlton Heston says bondage in that movie 100 times in one
Does
sentence.
he really?
He says it all the time. He's like, free my people from bondage. Classic Charlton Heston movie, dude.
Okay, so he says James Mangold's Star Wars movie is about the discovery of the Force. He says it's the 10 Commandments of Star Wars, which interesting. Like that, I could get behind that. Yeah, it's at 25,000 years before Episode 4, and that's all they really have on it. Yeah, he said, I told Kathleen Kennedy that I wanted to make a kind of Bible movie with a 10 Commandments of Star Wars vibe about the arrival of the Force, and that's what I've been pecking away at between press events. That's the idea.
Cool. That one, I think, great. I'll await it with great interest. We'll see who they end up casting for it. I'm interested to see what that storyline looks like. No expectations for that whatsoever, but it sounds really interesting. The Daisy Ridley one, I don't really care about, to be honest. But you know what? I've come to the realization I don't think, look, Star Wars needs to do its own thing with who they target, and Daisy Ridley Star Wars and like the sequel Star Wars, that's for like little girls. Like that's who that hero is for, and that's fine. That's great. You know, if you like, our younger sister Angela loved Rey when Force Awakens came out. Great. Awesome. Love that. It's just not for me, and I don't think I'm the intended target audience anyway. So if they're going to make more money off of, you know, that demographic, more power to you.
I don't really care. Like,
Yeah,
honestly, like in my opinion, I think that's a pretty bold move to announce a Rey movie.
Yeah.
And it's not even been like 5 or 6 years since The Rise of Skywalker. So that's surprising to me. I feel like they keep trying to force the character on us, though. Where they're like, you need to like Rey. Rey's really, like, you need to like Rey. Rey's cool. She's a female Jedi and she's cool. And I feel like they've tried to force her on us so much that I'm like, no. I'm like, can you, like, let's go to other things. Let's go to characters that are actually super beloved. And I'm not there. Also, the director is like one of the directors of Miss Marvel, the Marvel television series. So I don't really
see. This is what's happening with Star Wars, though, and I don't love it. And this is a quick tangent I'm going to go on real quick, which is that it's the Marvelization of Star Wars, and I know Disney owns both of them now, and it's kind of inevitable. We kind of knew this was going to happen, but it's in full effect now. They're just doing stuff for the sake of doing it, where now the market's going to become too saturated with too many stories, and there's not going to be any meat and potatoes there anymore. It's just diluting what the original trilogy set up 40 years ago, 30 years ago, whatever. 40 years ago. I don't know. I can do math. And it's annoying is what it is. Because, I mean, you can even see this with Marvel, like the She-Hulk and stuff. And, like, there's so many shows that they come out with that you're like, did you really need to make that? Or are you just making it for the sake of making it? It doesn't seem super necessary. And you're just introducing these characters who no one really cares about. Like, even Ant-Man. Hey, tell me about a more boring character than Ant-Man. He can get really small. I love Paul Rudd, by the way. He's an amazing actor, great comedian. I Love You, Man is one of my favorite comedies. And Paul Rudd seems like an awesome dude. I'd love to have dinner with him. He seems like a dope guy. But that's a boring character. And like they're like, oh, I wonder why we didn't have a lot of turnout for this new Ant-Man movie. Really, dude? You're surprised that a superhero named Ant-Man didn't get a lot of people to go out to the theater and watch? That's like, hey, I'm Windman. I can make the wind blow really fast. What are we talking about here? That's lame. I don't want to see that. And that's what we're kind of doing with Star Wars now too, where we're just making movies for the sake of making them. And you're totally right, where they're like, hey, you have to like Rey. Like Rey. When she's not an original character, she's just a female Luke Skywalker. And that's lazy and that's boring and that's not exciting. And that was the problem with the sequels is like at the beginning of the movie, it's a beginning of the trilogy. It's just a regurgitation of old characters and regurgitation of an old plot, and that's not interesting or fun or new or exciting. It's like you had all this time to build up this great story that you could have written and have totally new characters that don't even really need to be related to the old characters that much. They're doing their own new thing with a totally new storyline that goes in a completely different direction. Doesn't necessarily have to be about some guy turning dark and then coming back to the light side and all the Sith and all that stuff. Like, you can have those elements in there, but you don't need every single one of those elements from the old original trilogy to come back in the new sequels. And that's what they did, and that was not a good choice. And so when I'm seeing these movies come out, like the Rey movie, which is just a continuation of the sequels, which weren't generally liked that much by the Star Wars fan base, and I don't think we're going to look back on them as positively as we did on the prequels, then you're just diluting the brand. You're just diluting what Star Wars actually is. And, like I said, more power to you if you like that stuff and you want to watch, the Rey movie. But movies are art at the end of the day. I'm going to be a little bit of a snob here because the older I get, the more I've come to appreciate and love and watch movies with an artistic eye. And you watch the symbolism in them and the metaphors that they have within them and the smart writing and the details, and that's just what makes a movie-going experience so enjoyable, because at the end of the day we're telling stories, and humans are all about stories. It's the one thing we've been able to do for hundreds of thousands of years since humanity existed, was sit around a campfire and tell stories. Stories are part of us, is who we are in our human nature. So it's important to approach those stories in a good way, and we know innately what a good story is and what a bad story is. And you can tell when people put a lot of hard work into a story to tell a really compelling, interesting character arc, and when something is just thrown together for the sake of throwing it together and trying to wow people with visual effects and cool music and like a lot of flashy fight scenes and stuff, when the content of the story isn't compelling enough, frankly. So that's what concerns me, is like, can we focus on the core elements of what makes Star Wars, why it's such a good story to begin with. The fall from grace Anakin Skywalker story, that's been told. We don't need to piggyback off of that anymore. We can have elements that tie back into it, but we don't need to continue regurgitating these old characters to make a new story and just using these derivative elements to continue just making money, essentially. So that's my tangent. That's my rant on the whole Rey thing and where Star Wars is going, the Marvelization of it. But I don't know. It's been on my mind, especially with that last episode of Mandalorian 2 episodes ago. It just was like, it feels like we're just making it to make it. And we're not really thinking about every single detail and how to really tell an awesome, awesome story. And at least with George Lucas, he got a lot of criticism for the original trilogy, but that was his baby. He's clunky with dialogue. We all know that. That's what gives Star Wars its charm, though. He truly cared. There was passion behind it. He had all these creative ideas, and some of them were really awesome, and some of them fell flat. Some of the Gungan stuff in episode 1, Jar Jar stuff, but like he tried so hard, and I have such an appreciation for that, because you can tell it's genuine. With a lot of this new stuff, it doesn't feel as genuine because you don't have one person behind it. It's a corporation that's coming together to make a thing, to make money. Instead of one guy saying, I have this story I want to tell. Here's this character, and I've wrote a backstory for him, and here's his motivations, here's how he feels, here's what he likes, here's what he dislikes, and then here's where he starts, and here's where he ends. And then I've created all this stuff in between to make him go from this place in his life to this place, and here's his arc, and then I get to fill it with all this cool creative stuff. If we're not doing that, you're screwing up when you're telling the story.
Amen.
Sorry.
I applaud that. No, I think that's so important to say. I think I don't disagree. I think we're pushing out content to push out content. It's not inspired anymore. It's just we're doing it because we can, and it'll make us $1 billion. But I think we're getting to a point now in our culture where people are getting really tired of getting spoon-fed subpar content year after year. 100%. I mean, we've had how many Marvel movies have we had in the last 10 years, dude? And how many of those can you name where you were like, that was cinema?
Dude, the Avengers, was it Infinity War? The one where they just...
That was the last good one.
That was so good, though. Like, really good. I'm not a huge, superhero movie guy, but you bumped me into the theater for that. And by the way, that was a long time. They took 10 years of... I started with Iron Man.
Story building,
and the Captain America. And dude, they had the vision there. And it ended with Endgame, right? Infinity War was better than Endgame in my opinion. But they ended it. They had this big arc with all these stories in it, which I thought were well told. And then after that, it's kind of fallen off the map. But I will give them credit. They did put a lot of effort into each story intermingling with the next. And they did a pretty good job of those stories standing on their own, while also connecting to the other movies and the whole grand arc of everything. But now it's just kind of lost, where it's like, if you miss one movie, you're missing out on all this juicy information.
Well, not just that, they don't have a direction. They don't have a direction anymore.
And that's what's happening
everybody
with
was kind of everyone was like, what the hell was Phase 4? And I don't get me wrong, I'm not a huge Marvel person as I used to be 7 or 8 years ago, but the only movie that stands out to me as a good standalone movie was Spider-Man No Way Home, because that felt like a passion project with a story that somebody really wanted to tell.
And it was a smart
felt like
move. When
yeah.
I found out that that's what they were doing, my friend who works in the industry told me, I was like, here's my theory of what they're going to do with this Spider. By the way, Spider-Man, like every little boy loves Spider-Man. I loved Spider-Man when I was a kid. And I loved the Tobey Maguire movies. And I was like, dude, what would be cool is they've set up this multiverse thing. And I told my buddy, I was like, what if they did like a multiverse thing where somehow Tobey Maguire came back and even Andrew Garfield? And my friend was like, oh, dude, like that's what they're doing. And I was like, what? No way. I was like, that's so cool. Like, I wouldn't expect them to do like that because that's a lot of work to be able to like tie all that writing in together, get Willem Dafoe back, get Jamie Foxx and all the characters and Alfred Molina. But that's what they did, and that they were doing it because that's a compelling, cool story to tell, and it also tugs on your nostalgia strings a little bit.
Yeah, but like each character in that movie had an arc.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like each character had an arc,
by the way, and like there was stakes for it, and like kind of dark in a lot of circumstances. Like Willem Dafoe in that movie is just as good as he was in the first Spider-Man movie with Tobey Maguire. He's awesome in that. It's like a dark kind of violent movie, and that's what you need. You need those adult. I know they're like made for kids, but like in order to tell a really good story, you have to have those adult, real world elements to it, and have those stakes that the characters have to face in order to complete their story arc. And that's what they did in the show like that. And I think they did that in the newest Mandalorian episode, The Spies. There was some great stuff, which we'll talk about on our next episode, which we can get into. But if you lack those elements, then it just becomes making content for the sake of making content. And then, I don't know, then the whole thing gets convoluted and loses its appeal.
That's the way the Rey Palpatine. Everybody wants to call her Rey Skywalker. That's not how life works. You don't just get to steal that name. Yeah. I'm calling it the Rey Palpatine movie. It feels very forced. It does not feel very genuine. It feels like we're still trying to push this character on you, and I'm not excited, and I'm fine with not being excited. But I'm not sitting here like, oh gosh, Gerbu hiss, I hope Daisy Ridley never acts again. Like, no, that's not my take at all. It's just like,
Yeah. Well, I'm just really more judicious with my Star Wars viewing too. It's like there's going to be so much content now. It's like I want to really start tempering my expectations as to what comes out and focus on the really good stuff because they have a lot of content coming out. So I want to make sure I'm focused on that stuff when it does come out. And look, there's going to be 3 new Star Wars movies. Awesome. I'm happy to see that. But we'll see if they even get made. First
of all, let's see if it actually happens.
Yeah, when they do come out, great. But like one thing that I've been thinking about, and I'm sorry to keep bringing this back, but it's top of mind, is like I just finished watching Sopranos with Beth. And have you ever seen that show?
I have not. I have heard great things though, and everybody makes fun of it for the ending because it ends on a cut to black, doesn't it?
Well, don't spoil it for people. Sorry, spoiler
alert. That's not a spoiler. There's like a whole Family Guy bit.
Beth didn't know. A lot of people didn't know. I actually recorded Beth's reaction to the end. But like that,
oh, you did.
Way, dude, that cut to black. Sorry, spoiler alert for Sopranos. That cut to black at the end of that show is brilliant. I know people were so mad about it at the end, but David Chase, the guy who wrote Sopranos and he was the showrunner and all that, he is that artistic writer that movies and TV needs. He had an idea for the first season of the show, which is essentially a mobster that goes to therapy and his mother hates him and wants to kill him, essentially. Like, that's the story. But he goes to therapy, like a mobster going to therapy. Wow, what an interesting idea, because you would never do that because of the machismo Italian culture, and it's the mafia, right? He only had the idea for the first season, but then he built it out into 7 seasons, let's say, because there's 6A and 6B, whatever. We can get into that whole thing later. But they complete the story, and it cuts to black at the end. And so many people were mad about that, but it's such a good ending because it leaves open for interpretation. You can fill in the blanks of what you think. And then here we are talking about it 20 years after the show came out. And like, it's a brilliant, brilliant ending. And yeah, it's frustrating to some degree, but I can sit here and talk about it. Like Carolyn just finished watching it, our sister. And so she called me afterwards and was like, dude, what an ending. Like, what a show. I'm just emotionally like, I was so invested in these characters, and to see all their story arcs through 7 seasons and how Tony has evolved from this one person to the next person. Has he really changed? Has he become more sociopathic? And his wife, is she complicit with all this? And is she a conflicted character? And like his son and how he evolves, and his daughter, and then Christopher and all these people. And I'm like, it's such a good story. Like, I wish I could watch it again for the first time. Watching it again, it's like my 3rd watch through or something like that, but I pick up on different stuff every time, and everything in that show is intentional. Everything in that show is intentional. It's those tiny little details. And it's because they really cared about these characters. And they're like, what would he do here? What would he do there? And they stuck to the script and made sure every piece of dialogue for every character was perfect. Because is this really what they would say in this circumstance? How would he feel internally about this? You know? And that's why it's one of the best TV shows, if not the best TV show of all time, is because those details matter. And those characters were like protected. And like David Chase had creative control over all of it to make sure that we have the exact right casting. There's not a line of dialogue that's out of place. And so my main point is just like, if you want to tell a good story, that's what you have to do. And I don't know that they're putting that same effort into this because there's not really one person that has control over everything, and there's no grand vision. Star Wars is notorious for just kind of making it up as they go along, and it feels very much that way. You know, it shouldn't necessarily feel that way, but like this season of Mandalorian, I thought they'd all figured out by now. I'm like, well, you have to. It's been 2 years. You have to have an idea of where it's going, and to a degree they do, but it still feels like they don't. I'm still like, you know,
you feel like left in the
there's like
dust.
there's episodes in season 5 that you're like, oh, that connects to what he said in season 2, and like, look at how those things connect, and like, look at the symbolism here. Where like, there's a crow there, and that symbolizes maybe the bad omen of this person's death or whatever. Like, there's so many things, and I don't get that same feeling with Star Wars. Not to say like Star Wars and Sopranos aren't that comparable in terms of content, but in the way you tell the story, everything that's ever made there are rules to telling a good story. Any writer will tell you this. You have to keep some kind of rules, and so those rules stand true no matter what you're writing. And I don't necessarily see that with the Star Wars content that we're getting. It's not to say it can't change, and I feel very hopeful about Ahsoka. I would imagine Dave Filoni put a lot of heart and blood, sweat, and tears into this show, and I feel very confident that it's in his hands. It's his baby. But you know, something like Mandalorian, I don't really feel that as much. Certainly not with Book of Boba Fett, and even with Obi-Wan, it felt like, okay, we kind of just threw this thing together. I still really liked a lot of it. There's still elements in there that I'm like, wow, this is amazing. But it was kind of a lot. Some of it's just very like cheap, like Mando getting reunited with Grogu. I just the more I look at it, I'm like, that was just unearned. It just wasn't.
Yeah.
And it wasn't put in the right place. It was still an awesome episode. It's one of my favorite pieces of Star Wars content ever. But that's just kind of where I stand on it. Sorry, I'm rambling a lot.
No, I think it's important to compare and contrast these things. Like you said, like there is a definitive good way to tell a story, and there's a definitive bad way to tell a story. And I think it's important to call that out. Like I'm not somebody who, like, people will tell me sometimes, they'll be like, you should just enjoy it because I don't like the phrase, like some people say, like, all Star Wars is good. And I don't agree with that. Like, I can't just be spoon-fed content and be like, oh yeah, it was all great. It's whatever. Like, I think it's important to constructively criticize stuff. Be like, you know what? That wasn't told in the best way. I think it's important to do that because I just don't want to consume content and just not have an opinion on it and say it's all great. Because the reality of it is there are bad stories.
Yeah. Well, that's also what makes it fun is interpreting it. Like, remember Mandalorian season 2, how you and I would like call each other and just like, it was before we had the show, obviously. And we would just talk about it, like how it related to the last episode, what our theories were. And like, I haven't felt that excited about Star Wars content since Mandalorian season 2.
Yeah.
Maybe I've just evolved a little bit, but like, that's how the shows should be, you know? And you're totally right with the spoon feeding thing. Like, this season of Mandalorian has felt very spoon-fed of like, this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens.
then
You
this
see how this is all connected? Whereas with something like Sopranos, sorry, I'm going to bring it up again, they do not spoon-feed you whatsoever. They go, here's the story. And then some of it is, you're like, oh, that definitely has significance to this that happened, or something that's foreshadowing for something that's going to happen later on. And some of it, you're like, it leaves it open-ended where it's like, hey, I put this symbolism here. What does that mean? It's up for you to decide, kind of thing. And then it's not spoon-fed to you. It's kind of like, we're just telling the story in this way. And then you can sit there and go, it makes you just think about it a little bit more. Again, this is my theory of like, not my theory, my feelings on TV and film as being like an art form. It's snobby to say that, but it is. And like, that's what makes it fun and engaging, is when it's not spoon-fed and it leaves it open for interpretation. And then we can sit here and theorize of like, what did that thing possibly mean? And I don't know. In a lot of this content we've gotten, it hasn't felt as intricate and in depth to that degree.
Well, good stories don't tell you what to think. They give you things to think about.
Exactly. Great point. Yeah.
So,
they give you things to think about and discuss.
Yeah, and that goes for like all elements of storytelling. You know, it's and a lot of TV nowadays is telling you what to think, or they're being like, or they'll have the characters deliver lines in a way that's like, this happened because of this. Isn't that cool? Instead of like trusting their viewer to be smart enough to pick up on it. It's like we're very pandered to, and
Yeah,
I don't.
and I think that's because they make a lot of these things to the lowest common denominator. They're trying to appeal to as many people as possible, and they're afraid of missing out on viewers. They're like, we don't want to make it too complex for people, so therefore they want to spoon feed it to you. Whereas, like, you know, the other show I'm watching right now is Better Call Saul. The cinematography in that show is awesome. It's so cool and unique, like Vince Gilligan with Breaking Bad and stuff. Another really, really good show. The way he shoots certain scenes, it just like evokes an emotion in you, and like the tension that he brings up upon certain scenes, and the juxtaposition of one scene versus the next. And the pacing of the show is just so well done, and it leaves a lot of, like you said, like a lot of room for thought. Like, I finished an episode last night. I'm catching up on season 6 right now, and after the episode, I was like, wow, that was like, what an episode. There was so much to unpack there, and that's how you want.
Yeah, it still sits with you. It still sits with you. Like, I didn't stop thinking about the Clone Wars finale for like 2 months after it finished. Like, it really stayed on my heart. Like, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I just wanted to like live in that story. And my friend and I were texting each other like all of these headcanons and all of these theories. And like, that's the way I want to feel about Star Wars.
And that's peak Star Wars, by the way. That last season, like that scene I was telling you about with Maul and Ahsoka when they fight. The monologue that he gives to her, and like how they're going back and forth with one another, and she's like, I will join you, blah blah blah. And I'm like, this dialogue's great too. It's well written. It ties into the story perfectly. It adds something new and fresh, and you're kind of left sitting there in the scene just absorbing it. It's captivating, that scene. It's really well directed, really well done. And I hope we get some of that with the new Ahsoka show, and I hope we get that with new Star Wars. I'm excited to see this one that's set 25,000 years in the past. It's ripe for creativity. One of the things I love
and
about
you're
Star
not
Wars
connected to anything. There's so much originality that you could do. Like, and the 10 Commandments description, yes, please give me the Bible of Star Wars. That sounds fascinating. Yeah. I'd really like that. Get it like the Ashla and the Bogan, which is technically what they called the light side and the dark side before they were called the light side and the dark side. But
the Bogan?
Yeah.
What are they, Australian? The Bogan?
Yeah, it's like the Ashla and Bogan, I think it's what it was
the
called.
The Ashla and the Dusty Bogan, mate. That's what they call each other in Australia.
I think
you
that
Dusty Bogan, you.
I think that's what George Lucas had in the original script for Star Wars, and they bring that up in Rebels.
Oh, interesting.
So that is something in Rebels you have to look forward to. Carrying on with Star Wars news, because we did kind of get off on a tangent, an important tangent, but a tangent nonetheless. Bad Batch season 3 is confirmed, and it is also confirmed to be the final season. How do you feel about that?
Makes sense. I feel like they could tell a lot more with the story, but if they have as many episodes and they're succinct with them, I could see that making a lot of sense. They have a lot I think they can cover, but I think that's fine. I think maybe you could do another season 4, but I'm fine with it. I think that makes sense to me. I know you probably feel a little differently, but I think that's sufficient.
I think there was always opportunity for them to tell a lot of story in maybe 4 to 5 seasons if they wanted. I mean, that is a lot of ground to cover. I think they could do 4 to 5 seasons. I'm not angry that it's ending at season 3. I'm just, as far as animated content goes right now, the animated storytelling has been stronger than the live action stuff lately. In terms of cohesiveness and consistency, I know that we like ragged a little bit on some episodes in season 3 of Bad Batch, but for the most part, the story was more apparent there than I would say Mandalorian so far. So in that way, I think that just might be the side of me that's like animated storytelling has been a little bit stronger lately. So I'm sad to kind of see that go. At the same time, I'm not like devastated. I just hope that we keep opening up the doors for new animated projects that are still like in this style of Clone Wars animation, because it's really such a treat and I want to see more of it. Like, I think somebody was saying the other day, they were like, we should get a Captain Rex TV show about his story and what he's doing in this timeline and how he's still working with Ahsoka. And I was like, let's give me that.
Or Tales of the Jedi. That the season 2 was announced for that too. And
yeah,
I'm here for that, dude. More animated. That first season was excellent. It's so dope. just really cool short stories on it. It was like, what a good idea too. I really enjoyed that, and I feel like the possibilities are endless with that. So I'd like to see the animated form go on as well. I also watched it was a TikTok. It was that one that you and I think played on the show months ago, of like someone made every Clone Wars intro ever, where
Oh yeah.
someone did the AI voice of him. And I missed, like, dude, that reminds me of the beginning of COVID when I binge watched that show, and I was like, what a fun watch that was. Like, it's quintessentially Star Wars. The Clone Wars is like, whether you like the animation or not, like, it's easy watching. It's the tonality of it is so Star Wars, and even with Bad Batch, for the flaws that it had this past season, it's tonally, it is very, very Star Wars, and like I cannot criticize it for that. And I've really enjoyed it, and I think if they do every episode next season, like the first 2 episodes of season 2, or the last 2 episodes of season 2, and some of the stuff in the middle, if they do every single episode like that, it's going to be a banger. If they essentially if they make it like season 7 of Clone Wars, but with 20 episodes, it's going to be awesome. So that's what I'm hoping for. My theory is still that they were trying to recycle old Clone Wars plots for season 2, and I'm hoping they're done with that. And I hope we have less side mission video game things,
quests, less side quests would be nice.
Yeah, if they do like a one grand season story arc, I'm here for it, because we've really grown to like these characters. It's added a lot to the Star Wars universe in a very positive way. And you're right, it's something that they tend to get consistently right. I don't think we've seen any animation recently where I've been like, oh, I really hated that. Like,
I don't think they miss.
Fine, but like it's not. It knows what it is too. Like, I'm not going into it expecting it to be the greatest thing of all time, which I think also helps, because then a really good episode comes on and you're like, wow, that was really solid. Like, it kind of catches you by surprise.
Yeah, I've constantly been impressed with the animated content. I mean, like, Rebels has really good storytelling. Clone Wars has really good storytelling. Bad Batch has had really good storytelling. I just think tonally it doesn't miss with the overall vibe of Star Wars. And so I hope they, like, Tales of the Jedi even, like, Tales of the Jedi was such an unexpected treat, and I just adored it so much. I just really hope this continues, because the animated stories just allow for so much more flexibility that live action doesn't have. And I really hope they continue to expand the animated universe, and I hope we get to continue to get more television. When it comes to Bad Batch, it's like, yep, I can accept it at season 3. I could have seen it going on for longer, but I'm also accepting of the fact that, like, it's going to be over after this. And also, I'll be a little bit sad because that was like our first series that we broke down. So
I know, right?
So
well, you know what,
it'll
the
be a
other
little
thing I was thinking
emotional.
is, like, definitely make more animated stuff, because I was thinking about this with my child who's on the way, little baby Lois, who will be here in September. I get to watch those with her. Like, I can't wait to be able to watch those animated shows with her, which she can be like, I don't know, 8, and we'll be able to enjoy this whole Star Wars journey together, and that'll be fun. Like, it's very easily rewatchable. It's something you can have on in the background if you really wanted to. There's a lot of artistic value to it, and it's easy watching. So keep making more animated content. I'm here for it. Tales of the Jedi, I'm so stoked for. The preview for Bad Batch season 3 looks great, which means they have a lot of it done already, which is awesome. I don't know if we have a release date for that yet, but I'd imagine it'll be early 2024. But yeah, it'll be a bummer when that's done with. But you know what? Sometimes that's a smart thing to do. Quit while you're ahead. If they have a really solid season and they quit while they're ahead, perfect. I applaud that. That's what you have to do. That's what they did with Sopranos. That's what they did with Seinfeld. That's what any good TV show does. I saw this infographic on Twitter going around the other day of, like, you can see the diminishing returns of each season. Once it gets past a certain point, the ratings just start to plummet once it peaks. And the smart shows quit while they're ahead, because then you're immortalized as, like, what a great show. They should have done more. But that's what you want. You want people, you want to leave them wanting more. You don't want to go out limping where everyone's like, they should have taken out that last season. Like The Office. Should have ended
like
on
abusing
season 7
it.
or 8. Yeah.
It's like you abuse it till past the point of no return, and then it's no longer a great show. At least you end it while it's still great.
100%. Yeah.
So I agree with that sentiment totally. I think the other thing, too, that we didn't talk about is Visions has a season 2 trailer, which I actually didn't watch. Did you watch it?
No, I have not watched it.
Do you want to pull that up real quick?
Sure.
I can pull it up. I got it. I pulled it up. Okay.
And that comes out May 4th, right?
Yeah, really quick. So honestly, dude, we're not going to have, like, any pause time with this content. Okay, here we go. Visions season 2 trailer.
Ooh, interesting.
Very interesting. Okay, that's pretty sick.
Oh, wow.
They're going for a 3D look.
That animation's sick.
Everyone has an inner light.
Follow the light.
I always knew you were meant for bigger things.
What if you just keep going?
No need to fear. There are others like you here.
I saw it myself. She has special powers.
Can you get your porta potty off the starting line?
She's a total... Exactly.
Don't be afraid.
May the Force be with you.
It's showtime. Whoa. The storm is approaching.
I can fight them. I'm strong enough now.
No one is stronger than them.
We can beat them.
Oh, that's sick.
You there! Hold it!
Some great animation here.
We cannot choose where our calling takes us. Only whether or not to answer.
Okay. Okay.
That's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
That's pretty hype.
That looks great.
Talk about new animation. That guy looks terrifying. And she has that cool little, like, katana-looking lightsaber.
Yeah, where'd that lady go?
You gotta rewind it a little
Yeah,
bit.
she's got like a katana lightsaber, which is sick. Yeah, I love that they're doing they're going into 3D.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. I think Visions is cool. Just artistically, creatively, it's an interesting thing to go down. And it's just, again, anthological, where you can just tell whatever short story you want to tell. In the Star Wars universe, you give all these different creative studios creative control over how they want to tell it and what kind of story they want to tell. I think that's great. I think that looks really solid.
Yeah, I like the stop motion. The stop motion look is pretty cool. Also, there was a style in there that kind of reminds me of what is that animated movie that I watched in college? The Secret of Kells. The Secret of Kells animation. That is a movie that I watched when I was in college. It was like required watching from our animation professor. So it looks like they're bringing all these different studios in to try out these different styles. I really liked Vision Season 1 because of that. And I just like that they're doing something new and different. Like, it's not necessarily canon, but it's a creative way to tell a Star Wars story. So I'm never going to say no to Visions.
Yeah. Cool stuff. Yeah, that'll be out in 2.5 weeks.
It doesn't stop, dude. I mean, we're going to have somewhat of a break over the summer, but then Ahsoka is going to sneak up really quick. I mean, we're halfway through April.
There's not going to be a break because I'm going to have to do some Rebels reactions. So
we're going to have to do a lot.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of content.
Yeah. Well, is that it for Star Wars news?
A whole hour's worth of Star Wars news. I mean, we have Skeleton Crew. We have Andor Season 2. There were trailers for that. I did watch crappy versions of those trailers online. Oh my God. Skeleton Crew, everybody says it looks like Goonies in space. And I saw the footage that somebody took of that trailer. And it's like, Jude Law is a Jedi. That is his character.
Oh, cool.
He's a survivor of Order 66, I think.
Of course, another survivor.
Another survivor, because nobody died.
Yeah, Yoda's like, last of the Jedi you will be. Well, not really true, Luke. Sorry, buddy. You're not that special.
Maybe he just did that to kind of like guilt trip Luke.
I guess, yeah.
It's coming off that way the more they do this. But that trailer looked cool. I saw an extended version of the Ahsoka trailer where it was like Sabine fighting with Ezra's lightsaber, which was really, really cool. I don't actually know. It might have been, I think it's Ezra's lightsaber. But I saw those clips, like she's fighting the young girl apprentice with the lightsaber, which I thought was really cool.
Oh, cool. That is cool.
Sabine is I will say this about Rebels. Sabine has been trained to fight with a lightsaber, even though she's not a Force sensitive. So that's a cool little tidbit. All around, like a lot of news. I mean, there are some things that I'm more so excited for than others, but I mean, exciting times. I think the biggest thing to come out of Celebration was definitely Ahsoka. I think that was the biggest highlight for people. So.
Yeah, it looked like fun. I heard it was a little disorganized in some parts, made me nostalgic for my first Star Wars Celebration visit last year. But it looked like there was some solid stuff there, some good interviews. They talked about the Acolyte a little bit. I'm very nervous about that show. I hope it's really dark. That's really what I'm hoping for. Apparently, it's about two twins who get separated. One's at the light side, one's on the dark side. So we'll see how that ends up. But yeah, good Star Wars news all around. Hefty session for us, guys. If you guys haven't seen my hat, you're probably wondering where I got it. I got it in our merch store, which you can see below. So go check out some of the merch there. We'll be refreshing that store very soon. Please check it out. Support the channel. We appreciate it. There's stickers, tote bags, T-shirts, sweatshirts, lots of cool stuff. Buy a gift for your friend and introduce them to the show so they enjoy it, or buy them a Hello There T-shirt or an Ahsoka T-shirt in preparation for the Ahsoka show. And don't forget also, click like, subscribe, click the notification bell so that you know when our videos come out. If you guys are enjoying this, we appreciate all the support. Check us out on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok at @Star_Wars_pod. And you can also leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. That would be awesome. Thank you so much. And we'll be doing a breakdown of Mandalorian episodes 22 and 23. Chapter 22, 23, episodes 6 and 7. So make sure to check that out as well on our channel and check out our review videos and let us know what you guys think of all this Star Wars news. Sorry for all my ranting. I'm probably ruffled some feathers. Our fans hate me because I don't know who Glup Shadow is. But a good episode today. And check out our new videos, and we'll see you guys on our next episode of another Star Wars podcast.
Bye, guys.
See you guys. Bye.